Welcome back to another episode of Health is Wealth. And thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And as always, I am beyond grateful and thankful from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who is tuning in to today's episode and also tuning into this podcast. As every week I am dropping a new episode on Sundays, just sharing some words and thoughts, hopefully to bring you some value, some inspiration, some motivation, just things that I'm learning on my own journey on this crazy ride that we call life, things that I'm learning for the first time. Things that I am, understanding in a different point of view, and just sharing some of my experiences, again, my own journey in life in hopes that it brings you some value. So you get a chance to learn something new, see something different in different point of view, or if anything, just get a chance to know who I am a little bit more in the quest that I'm on in life. And what I wanted to talk to you about in today's episode is how really focusing on my health recently has had a big impact on my finances. And, this all stems back to this idea of health is wealth, right? And I believe there's a big correlation with health and wealth in many different aspects of the meaning, and how I believe that there's a lot of us who might desire to want more out of life, right? And I think that there's a lot that contributes to one becoming successful, by focusing on health. And I think a lot of what can hinder, people from getting to that side of success could be just not being healthy, right? Not getting in the gym, not eating well. And the reason I believe there's this correlation is because I think there's a lot that translates from us becoming healthy and the disciplines that we're learning and the habits that we're building and the mindsets that we develop that could really just transfer over into other areas in our life, like financial wealth. But I believe in bettering different aspects and qualities within our own life. And so a lot of that in my own journey right now, I believe is one of those big things that's been my biggest hinders from where I've been to where I could truly be in life, is not being completely focused in on my health, right? And so I don't believe I'm the only one who might experience this. I think for a lot of people, if we can really prioritize our health first, it could be the very thing that could unlock so many different aspects of our life to become more wealthy financially, spiritually, mentally, in so many different ways. I think there's a big connection here. And so just really uncovering and discovering a lot of this in my own life, making fitness and health my priority, and how it's really unveiling and really helping improve other areas in my life. And one of the big ones I think here recently has been my financial situation. So, I've been working a lot to improve the quality of my fitness and health when it comes to exercising more, getting more sleep, right? Eating better, things like that. And after some time though, now, like when you start to really make health your focus, when you start to prioritize wanting to exercise more and eat better and get more sleep, you start feeling better about yourself. You start feeling good, as you start to see progress being made, seeing the habits that are becoming better in your lives, seeing the routines, the mindset, the energy, so many different aspects physically and mentally become better. It's hard not to start looking at other areas in our lives and be like, okay, if I can start correcting this area in my life and I'm feeling so good in this area in my life, what other things can I correct and make better and improve on? It just seems to come naturally. It happens hand in hand. And I believe a lot of people who start to really embark on, the journey of their health, it just happens as a byproduct of doing that. that all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm starting to exercise more. I'm starting to eat better. I'm starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel more confident. I'm starting to feel like, okay, this is great. This is awesome. I feel like I'm very proud of myself. You get this self-satisfaction and reward from doing things, on this side of it, that you start looking at other areas in your life and you truly want to improve on them. And what it's really allowed me to do lately is focus on now my financial stuff. Because for me, one of my biggest goals is to be, not just healthy, but wealthy at the same time as well, right? Now, granted, there's people who can be wealthy but not healthy, and there's people who could be healthy but not wealthy. But I'm like, maybe the golden ticket in life is to be both, right? And that's what I'm after. That's what I want to pursue, is the greatest version of myself, who is the healthiest and the wealthiest, not just, again, monetary, right? But in other aspects of life, in spirit, in relationships in life, and the quality of life, and so many other things. And so, but again, recently though, it's really allowed me focusing on my health to really dive into my financial stuff, as I've really been sitting back thinking a lot about this, thinking about my future, thinking about my age, thinking about me turning 40 in a couple of months, thinking about where I want to be in a few years, where do I want to be 10, 15, 20 years, whatever, things like that. It's allowed me to really sit down with myself and be like, okay, financially, where are we at in life right now? Do you feel like you're in a good spot? Can you correct some things in your life? Can you do better? Can we figure out a game plan to come up with, and a strategy in life to come up with right now that could put me in a better financial situation in the future, as I think about, retirement and wanting to invest to build wealth, not just for me, but for my family and loved ones and close ones, and for future generation and generational wealth and all these different things. And it's been me really thinking about my health. It's allowed me to really start thinking about this other area in life, and how can I improve it, and how can I make it better, And if I could start developing those same habits and disciplines and mindsets in improving my physical health, right? How could I use those same disciplines to start to start improving the quality of my finances? Because I'm not in the best spot, and I'll admit it, right? I'm not in a horrible spot, but what I mean is, in life right now, I look back and I'm like, okay, I can do a lot better, right? In life, I can learn to develop some better habits. I can learn to develop better financial literacy. I can learn to develop, how to improve my skills of making money, of saving money, of investing money, and budgeting money, and all these different things. And so, a lot of that has led me to some decisions lately to really start going in and focusing on my financial situation right now, because I've got a 5-year goal plan to want to be out of my 9-to-5 job, to live and pursue a life and career where I feel I'm being called to through God, to help people with their fitness, to help people with motivation, to lead a purposeful, meaningful life. Essentially being an entrepreneur, having my own job, being my own boss, having my own business, things of that nature. And it's just because where I am right now and what I do for a living, I don't feel necessarily is what my calling or purpose is, right? I'm grateful to God for where I am, because it's further than where I used to be. But now stepping into these new roles, this new identity, and this new version of myself that I'm becoming, I feel like God's telling me these are all just stepping stones, and there's more for you to achieve. So thinking about all that, though, it's allowed me to really focus on my financial situation and how to get me closer to that goal, and get me closer to a plan of achieving that, but then achieving a more financially secure future. So again, it's really had me look around lately in my life and ask myself, okay, step one of trying to build that new lifestyle, trying to build what we want in the future, it's going to take me having to look at my financial situation and addressing some things that I know I can improve on, right? With spending and impulse buys, liabilities, things of that. So I've looked around at a lot of stuff lately, and, it's allowed me to make some decisions that the 5-year from now version of myself could look back and be proud of. So I've decided to start paying off some debt, right? I got rid of a couple of toys that I absolutely love and have enjoyed and have been amazing because they've brought, me some new connections and new friends and new things in life and I enjoy doing. But right now I know I've got to put these things aside. They say it's called delaying gratification for a little while and come back to the fun lifestyle that I really want. But just for the sake of me trying to build and create and invest to purchase assets, to earn and build investments that can make passive income to then buy the fun lifestyle, right? So I've made some great decisions here recently that's allowed me to sell off something, which ultimately led me to freeing up money that was getting tied into monthly payments and insurance and maintenance and gas and stuff like that on certain toys that I had, to freeing that up. But also just paying off some like credit card consumer debt things, little things that I had kind of just laid around everywhere, right? So it's allowed me to do that, and it's allowed me just to really be like, okay, now that I've started that cycle and started, going in this direction, what next thing can I start to improve financially? Really learning to control myself with impulse buying, really having the control on deciding if I need to make a purchase on something, is it something I need or want, and separating the two. Because, a lot of times what gets everybody caught up in the financial muck and stuck that we're in is we can't differentiate the two. And, we get so caught up buying stuff that we don't need. We wonder why we don't have money at the end of the next paycheck, or, why don't we have money saved aside for a rainy day or whatever it may be, right? So it's allowed me to dig into that. Also, allowing me to open up some things to be like, okay, now we're in this process. So how can we make, our financial stuff better? So outside of that, I recently opened up a high yield savings account and put money there. It's like an online banking that I'm doing right now with SoFi. And so that's going to allow me to start, they say pay yourself first, right? A lot of times we don't have money at the end of our paychecks when we get paid because we're putting money out everywhere else but ourselves first. They're going to bills, they're going to this, they're going to stuff that we're just buying, frivolously and stuff like that. And so I opened up a high yield savings account, and what that is a savings account that earns a little bit more interest than just your normal savings account with a big institution, right? So I'm doing online banking with SoFi to where I'm starting to do some direct deposits with them. So out of my paychecks every week, there's going to be a certain amount that goes into the SoFi. It's a savings account, but it's going to be a high yield savings account, which is going to earn me like 3.80% on my savings, where normally my bank, I'm getting like 0.2% or something of that, right? Or not even that, like 0.05, percent. And so it's just a means of getting more interest back on the money that you're putting in savings. I also have another separate bank account that I have officially started that I've got through my union. So I work with IBEW, and through my union, I have started a bank account, and this is going to be like my real estate funding investment account. So I still have stuff coming out of my paycheck that's automatically going there and to this other bank before it ever hits my pocket. So I got money getting pushed aside already. So that's easier for me to be like, okay, out of sight, out of mind, right? And this is going to be for a starting of a fund for future real estate investments. I see a lot of people who become wealthy is real estate is a part of what they do, where they park money, where they put money to build wealth, etc. And so, as I see a lot of, if you want to become wealthy, you just got to follow what wealthy people do. And so trying to take notes, trying to take lessons, trying to observe, trying to implement these things that as I follow podcasts that I listen to and videos from YouTube that I watch and people who I follow on social media, these are things that I get from what they do to make them wealthy, right? It's they pay off debt, they get rid of certain things as they were building their wealth and status with that, right? They delayed gratification, they put money in places to where it can earn them more money, etc. And so I'm doing all of this right now in my life, but I believe it really stems from me really focusing, especially recently, on my health. That's now gotten me over to this side, wanting to really, really, really improve. Because again, I believe a lot of the disciplines that we can start to learn, right, from our health can really be applicable and is very applicable to other areas in our lives as we learn delaying gratification and self-control and doing things that we know we need to do even if we don't want to, or doing things that we need to do even if we're not motivated. So many of those traits, and disciplines and foundations and principles could be spread all around. And so that's how that is very much so helping me in my financial situation as I'm running down, my budget as to the things that I'm spending. I'm learning more self-control on the impulse side of buying when it comes to my money, like delaying gratification. I'm learning, to try to keep my money in the bank and not just rush to spend it just because I got paid. And I know ultimately it's going to lead me to some better results and progress if I can continue on this road. And this is just the start of it. But it really stemmed from me, really, especially recently, focusing on my health, and then now my age, because I am getting older, and I'm asking myself, like, where do I want to be 5 years from now? Where do I want to be 10 years from now? I want to build a secure financial foundation for me, myself, my family, others around me. And I know it all starts here. Just like in your health, if you're starting a weight loss journey, you're starting a fitness journey, it all starts with day one of just starting, and then you improve and then you work on it. It's not going to happen overnight, but the more you build, the more you practice, the more repetitions, the more effort you put into it, the more you get out of return. And so I'm very proud of myself for this, because I know a year from now I'll be in a lot better position than I am right now, continuing this path of my financial literacy that I am beginning, where, like I said, I'm paying off stuff. I got rid of some debt. I'm trying to get rid of some more debt right now. Right. I've opened up, another account to where I could put money as a high yield savings account to save for an emergency fund. And then I've got another account that I'm opening up specifically to what I'll use in the future to invest into real estate, buy a rental home, pour into some real estate trust kind of fun things, right? So many different things that can come, but more or less opportunities. So this is kind of just me tying in this whole idea that I really believe health is the start of creating wealth in our entirety of our lives. And if we could start to really focus and hone in on our health, it could really be the gateway to open up us improving other areas in our life. And so I'm just thankful to God that this is where I am in life. And this is where I'm at, mentally and physically, spiritually and emotionally on this path, because I know this is the right path. I know, thinking about the future, thinking about where I want to be 5 years from now, thinking about the life I want to build, thinking about a legacy, thinking about, wealth and generational wealth and so many different aspects, and thinking about just, again, where I want life to go in the future is all what's helping curve and carve these decisions that I'm making right now. Because truth be told, it's like I see people who are a lot older than me, and I look at the trajectory I'm on. If nothing changes, and ask myself, do I see myself being there? And unless I change something, then I'm going to end up where anybody else would be if they don't change anything. Sometimes what happens in life is, we just let life happen. We don't control it. We don't try to direct it. We just let it happen. And then the end of our life comes and we wonder why we aren't where we thought we would want to be. And it's because we let the ship sail, but we weren't, steering the boat, right? And so all of this for me is to hedge against that, to be like, okay, I'm going to navigate my life. So where I end up isn't going to be by accident. It is going to be because I navigated the entire ship, the entire time of where I want to go. And I know making more smarter decisions like this, focusing on my health, focusing on my financial decision, is going to give me assurance and reassurance that 10, 5 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, I'm going to end up in a place 10 times better where I thought I would be at, but where I would want to be at, because I'm going to put myself by design there. There's so much more that's going to lead up to where I plan to see myself 5 years, 10, 15, and 20 years from now. But starting now, starting today, starting in the moment, you start with wherever you're at is what's going to get you there. And again, a lot of this is being led and driven by the habits that I'm learning and I'm improving on, I'm getting better with, and the progress that I'm seeing with my physical health that's now translating into me focusing on improving, my financial health, right? And all of that comes with it. So, just kind of wanted to share a little bit of what's going on with some of that in my life and some of the progress that I am making and some of the direction that me being able to start prioritizing and really focusing on my health, how it's translated now to this other journey that I'm really starting. And I'm very excited. We're halfway through the year and I'm very excited to see where I end up at the beginning of the year, knowing that I sold some stuff right now. I'm selling stuff as I can. I'm putting money away in its savings. I've got a plan to continue to pay down a little bit more debt, but I've done quite a bit, and it's improving my credit score. It's improving me just having more money available to pay off more debt and put into savings. And overall, it's just going to continue to compound to better habits, improving that for the sake of building wealth, of building a financial security in the future for me, loved ones, others around me, building generational wealth, and so forth. So definitely invite you guys to join me on this journey, as I really try to improve elements of my life, physically, mentally, financially, again, other aspects of my life, and how all of this ties together, but how I believe it all starts with our health. Thank you so much for tuning into yet another week's episode of The Health is Wealth, and we will see you on the next one.